I joined at Steven Poacher to talk about the Division 1 football this weekend. So Monaghan, Kerry, Dublin, Meath, Galway, Mayo and Donegal, Tyrone. And just to kind of give a general lie of the land, Galway are top with 8 points, Kerry 7. Then you've Tyrone and Dublin on 6, Donegal and Monaghan both on 5, and down near the end you've got Mayo on 3 points. And Meath, they're on the bottom. They haven't had a win at all. Just starting off with Galway against Mayo. I mean, Galway, obviously, as I just said, they're up at the top and they're looking like in great shape to actually claim the league title. Whereas Mayo, they're closer towards relegation and need a couple of results to pull themselves out of it. Where do you think Galway are at this year? Because it feels like a switch was flicked overnight. It's so long since we've seen them play, but they played at times very dour football under Kevin Walsh last year, All-Ireland semi-finalist the year before. But I have to say it was a chore to watch them, whereas this year it just seems like Pádraig Joyce has flicked the switch.
Yeah, Shane, I suppose it's about looking to get the balance, Obviously they had Paddy Tally there when Kevin Walsh was there, and just from watching down, it's very evident what style of football Paddy likes to play. He likes to play a very much a counter-attacking style of football with 13, 14 back and hitting teams in the counter-attack. But Galway were obviously always a team that you would look at, and you obviously look at the county champions, Cora Finn. Well, not this year, but from previous years, you look at Cora Finn and how they played football, how they like to use the foot, and how they like to kick the ball, and how they like to play with a bit of swagger and a bit of freedom up front. And I suppose everyone's always associated Galway with fantastic forwards and the likes of Burke and Walsh and Comer and these guys. Now, at this weekend, I'm believing that Damien Comer and Shane Walsh are struggling. They're both missing with injuries, which would be a blow for them. But see, I suppose a bit like the club season, this is a new year, really and truly this is a new season. It's 7 months since anyone played any type of inter-county football. So it's how these guys have sort of re-entered the frame. It's what team can sort of come together quicker than the other team, because really and truly from a physical point of view, I don't think there's anyone that's going to really gain a massive edge from a physical perspective. I think most teams are going to be on a par in that respect. So I think it's more of a togetherness from an organisational point of view. And I think the fact that maybe Mayo won't want to go to Division 2. I don't think they'll want to go to Division 2, and I could be wrong. They could be saying to themselves, well, if we go to 2, it might not be the worst thing in the world, because they might start to blood maybe some of their younger players, because they are at the stage now where I feel Mayo are in transition. I think they should be bleeding some more of those younger players that actually played in that All-Ireland final last year. I think Kildare beat them in the final last year on the 21 level. So, if Mayo had the opportunity maybe at a lower division, but then there's no guarantees, because when you go to Division 2 and you look at Division 2 to how it's that much of a minefield that, one win could take you from third to top, so there's no easy games there either. But I do feel from a psychological point of view, Shane, Mayo will definitely not want to go to Division 2. So I do feel it's a difficult opener for Galway. It's very, very hard probably for us to analyse games, because we're not going on any form. There's no form. All you're relying on is word of mouth. Like, by all accounts, Donegal went down the road and played Mayo in a challenge game there a few weeks ago. But you're relying on word of mouth in these things, and you just sort of think. But I would say home advantage in Tube. The fact that McGuinness is in there has given them a bit of a boost and a bit of a lift. I would probably say Galway will probably edge this one at the weekend, Shane.
Yeah, and do you think that the McGuinness thing, it actually kind of maybe balanced things out in a sense for Galway, because they were too defensive last year, I would have said, being very simplistic about it. Now they seem to have the attacking thing sorted out, and Shane Walsh playing as a focal point at number 14, and maybe Comer was a bit further out the field at times, if I remember games correctly. Do you think that the McGuinness thing gives them a bit of balance between attack and defence, because the transitional play of Donegal was one of the huge factors when they won the All-Ireland?
Yeah, and listen, there's no question, like Shane, there's two ways, that I've said to you before in this show. There's two ways in which you can attack in Gaelic football, and you either run the ball through the hands or you kick the ball, and there's no real other way of attacking. And the really good teams can mix it up. The really good teams can know when to run the ball or when to kick it. And I think the fact that McGuinness is in there, McGuinness was obviously under Donegal at the time. McGuinness obviously had a very, very hard running game at the time. But look, with Galway and the players they have got that talent, they have got that ability to be able to kick the ball. As you say, Shane Walsh at full forward, Damien Comer, two great focal points. But the important thing is, Shane, when you're playing that sort of style of football, if you have a kick passing game and you're trying to install a kick passing game, it's vitally important that you have an inside line where the ball is retained and sticks. There's no point in having a kicking game when you don't have that pivotal figure up front who can actually win their own ball, hold it up, lay it off, bring other people into play, and also take their own score as well. But I think with Comer and with Walsh and with Burke, Galway do have a trio there that can hurt teams, there's no question about it.
Yeah, and what do you make of Kerry coming into this? I mean, they've been obviously very close to Dublin last year, so they're going to Monaghan this weekend. How, is it important to hit the ground running for a team like Kerry, or do you feel like they're going to they'll be favourites to come through Munster, even though Cork are on their side in the semi final?
Yeah, listen, I suppose we possess one of the best talents that we've seen in Gaelic football in the last number of years, Shane, with David Clifford. I think Seanie O'Shea as well is an absolute class act as well at centre half forward. But I just think Monaghan are in a situation now where they're sitting on 5 points. They will be looking at that Galway game very closely, thinking, hoping that Galway, can obviously beat Mayo to take the pressure off them. But Monaghan taking Kerry in a scheme is an interesting one. Now I know that they play a lot of their National League games in a scheme, but in a scheme tends to suit Monaghan a little bit more. It's a tighter pitch. It might suit them a little bit more, and it will be a right battle for Kerry. And their last time up north, they just before lockdown, they lost to Tyrone in a real dogfight in Eden Dork, which is going to be a very, very similar circumstances, I think, in a scheme. So, this will be a difficult game for Kerry. It's a difficult opener for them. It's a long way to travel as well, under the circumstances that we're in. So, it'll be interesting. And I just wouldn't rule out a Monaghan win there.
Yeah, like in Monaghan, one of 3 Ulster sides that are in Division 1 at the moment. I think they have to come through the preliminary round, which is going to be very tough to go through an Ulster with preliminary round the whole way through, and then probably meet Dublin in an All-Ireland semi-final after that. But of the Ulster teams in there, who do you think are looking the best at the moment? I suppose it's going to be between Donegal and Tyrone heading into the championship.
Yeah, well, listen, Donegal sitting on 5 points and Tyrone are sitting on 6 this weekend. They play each other, and you're sort of, the sceptic among us would probably say that they'll be doing a bit of shadow boxing, but neither of those teams would want to go to Division 2 either, so both those sides would be out to get 2 points to try and more or less stake their claim in Division 1 for next year, because I think playing Division 1 football, teams have realised now over the last few years that if you play Division 1 football, you have a better chance of progressing in the Sam Maguire, and there's no question about it. I think teams that are playing at Division 2 level, I think they cannot win the All-Ireland. It's simple as that. You have to be playing Division 1 level if you want to win the All-Ireland, and teams like Tyrone and Donegal have aspirations of winning the All-Ireland. It was interesting to hear Ryan McHugh's comments there during the week, where he talked about the opportunities, relishing the opportunity to play knockout football this winter. And if you actually think about it, winter football, because of Donegal's style, Donegal play a lot of their football through the hand, and the reason they do that is obviously because of the conditions in Donegal, the weather conditions that tend to be up there quite a lot of the time of the year. You're playing on the north coast in Kilcar and the likes of that, and Ardrahan, things like that. And I would say that style of football may just favour Donegal this time of the year, Shane, and I just wouldn't rule out a Donegal challenge, not just in Ulster, but on the All-Ireland as well.
Exactly, as much because of their forward power as anything else. I mean, obviously Michael Murphy, but Paddy McBrearty, and he's at full tilt, and even Jamie Brennan, who at times looked like a serious all-star option last year. Yeah,
and listen, the serious physicality, and I'm reading actually, you're talking about McGuinness and the legacy McGuinness left. There's a serious strength conditioning culture that actually filtered down through Donegal's underage structure 10 years ago when McGuinness came along, particularly at under 21 level. So that's 10 years ago, and they're bound to be reaping the rewards now at this stage. So, from a physical point of view as well, Donegal will fear no one at this time of the year.
And in an overall sense, Tyrone, like if you go on the last year or two, they're obviously never too far away. But do you feel like there's enough in them to take another step on again? And like McShane being out this year is a huge setback.
Yeah, McShane's a big blow. It's a big blow, and you were sort of thinking to yourself, we're going well. McShane had sort of operated that pivotal role as you talked about, full forward. Maybe someone that they were lacking or someone that they were missing, But Colin Kavanagh, big loss, Shane, big loss. Even from a physical perspective, from a leadership perspective, he's a big loss. I noticed that Dara Canavan, the son of the great Peter, is made himself available for the under-21 semi-final next Saturday. Now, whether he will feature for the seniors on the Sunday is yet to be seen, but he could be a serious asset for them because he's a seriously talented young fella, seriously talented young individual.
Is he ready to go, do you think, at this level?
I would say so. I do believe he is. At the end of the day, Shane, if you're looking at a really good under 20, physically might have to do a little bit of development, but for me, if you're a really good under 20 at this stage of your career, you should be ready for senior football.
Yeah, and in terms of Conor McKenna, if you were, and even Conor Glass with Derry, and he's obviously probably not going to, I'm pretty sure he's not available from the very, very start. But if you're Mickey Hart or whether you're Rory Gallagher, are you going to try and find a way to get them involved on the field as soon as possible, if at all, if you can at all?
Yeah, I think they have to. I think they have to. The more football that Conor McKenna's playing, Shane, the better. I suppose I was involved with Enrique 10 years ago when Martin Clark came home from Australia at the time. And, Martin took to the football like a duck to water. It's not as if he's coming back to a sport that he's alien to. It's a sport that he's played all his life, that he's grown up with, that he's harboured skills in that are ingrained in him. It's like riding a bike, it's never going to go away from you. So I would have no issue with McKenna coming back in there. And obviously, it's important that probably Tyrone get football into him as quick as possible. And I would say you'll probably see him on Sunday at some stage, no question about it.
And Meath, they've gone through the league campaign at this stage and they haven't picked up a win at all. Again, it's been months and months since they've actually played. Go to Parnell Park rather than Croke Park. Do you think that Parnell will give them a better chance?
Yeah, it probably does. And nobody knows how Dublin have come out of lockdown either. Meath have obviously lost 5 games from 5, and one of the things that stood out for me, Shane, actually was their scoring average. They've only averaged just over about 11 points a game, which is very, very poor for Division 1. So we would need to improve on that. To beat Dublin, you're going to need the guts of 20 points at least, and that's at least, So the last team to beat Dublin, obviously, in competitive championship was Donegal in 2014, and they scored 3-14 or 3-15, I think it was. So, Meath will need goals, and they'll probably need 2 or 3 goals at least, and for a team that's averaged about 11.5 points a game so far, I just can't see that happening. So for me, it's a straightforward Dublin victory. Although Parnell Park, as you say, it just might leave Meath as exposed, but can't see anything other than a straightforward Dublin victory.
And in terms of Dublin, in an overall sense, I think many people have this idea that if they're going to be caught any year, it's this. They've already achieved history. Manager has left. Jack McCaffrey's left. Diarmuid Connolly, who may not have been a starter anymore, he's no longer involved in the panel. Owen O'Gara, Bernard, Brogan, lads like this that you don't maybe have the same depth in your training matches, which are obviously crucially important over the course of the year. Do you subscribe to this idea that if Dublin are going to be caught, this could be the year?
Yeah, listen, there's no question about it. Plus, as well, the new manager, Desi's just come in there. He's obviously trying to install a system, and he not want to just go with Jim Gavin's template. He want to put his own stamp on things. He want to put his own authority on things. And look, he'd probably not change an awful lot, but at the same time, he wants the team associated with his way of playing and his way of thinking. And he was probably more annoyed than anyone that the lockdown came at that time, because nobody has access to players now. Whether teams were breaking bans or doing whatever they want, or back early training, the bottom line is you're still very, very restricted in what you can do and how much contact time you can have with the players, Shane. So it is an interesting one. I think, as you say, winter football, if they've been caught in the past, it's been during the National League, when pitches are heavier and, the break of the ball goes away from you, whatever it happens to be. But it's getting them out of Croke Park is the big issue, I suppose. That's probably the biggest issue of the lot, because in Croke Park, it is difficult to see anyone really beating them, but if they were to get on the road and they were to take them out of Croke Park, then obviously that could possibly happen. But listen, I think we've missed a trick this year, though, Shane, in the GA. I think what we had was we had an opportunity just to sort of tear up the sort of template as such, and to get it at the provincials for 1 year, and let's just throw the 32 teams in the hat, nearly like an FA Cup type scenario, and roll them out home or away. And you could have been left with some serious mouth-watering oppositions there in the first round, like even Kerry away to Tyrone or Dublin away to Down or something like that. And I think it would have left for a very, very great. It would have been a brilliant spectacle. Finish the leagues off, and then run your knockout championship with your 32 teams in the hat. I think it would have been a fantastic. I think it would have given everybody a real bit of freshness, because really and truly at this stage, bar Ulster, you could argue Connacht this year. The Galway, obviously Mayo will not want Galway to get too far ahead of them, but I'd say the Connacht everywhere else. I'd say the Ulster everywhere else is pretty straightforward when you think about it. And the provincials don't do it for me, Shane. They don't get me excited, and I'm just looking into the outside. I'm thinking, yes, Ulster's a bit of a minefield, but at the same time, whoever comes out of Ballybuffet between Tyrone and Donegal probably won't be kicking the ball away. So you could even argue at times that Ulster is predictable too. Between those two. So for me, it was an opportunity missed. It definitely was, and I think that there probably would have been a greater chance of Dublin getting caught that way, because teams are so far behind in Leinster. Like, I was just glancing at the league tables today, looking at Meath, bottom of Division 1, Kildare, second, bottom of Division 2. Leinster football is not in a great place at the minute, Shane, and I think Dublin have had the legacy that Dublin has left on Leinster is a little bit of that as well. The teams now just don't believe that what is the point of competing for Leinster championships when there's no chance type thing, and I know having a bit of time with Carlow there and stuff like that. Obviously, getting to a final would have been a huge thing for them. But for teams like Kildare and Meath, it's hard to sell that, and I think what's happened now in Leinster is, what's going to happen this year, in Leinster, is that teams are going to be punch drunk by the time it gets to the middle of November because they're playing every week. But Dublin really don't have to come out a second year in Leinster, so they can tiddle along nicely in Leinster, but through the motions, win their Leinster title, and then come into the business end of the championship in peak physical condition, where other teams and other counties might just pick up a notch here or there, because at the end of the day, to win an Ulster title, but take Down, for example, my own county, for Down to win an Ulster title this year was huge, absolutely huge, and is it possible? Absolutely. If they got over Fermanagh, they could obviously squeeze through to a final, and then anything's possible on the day, and there's been a couple of really big challenge games there recently with Meath, and they beat Kildare last week in a challenge game as well. But, so to win an Ulster title, you've seen the emotion was common as well, winning a provincial title. But for me, Leinster is just nearly like a warm-up for Dublin. Really just a warm-up.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Fermanagh there, and of course Ryan McManaman has been speaking in the media recently, talking about 10 of the players have tested positive for COVID-19, and there was a further 7 self-isolating as a precaution, and that he'd been on to Croke Park ahead of their match against Clare, which is in Ennis this Sunday, that the banner, about moving it or a neutral venue or whatever, and he said, I know Croke Park have said that we haven't put in officially that we want to postpone. You could probably tell them that good things come to those who wait. It's coming. Croke Park know our concerns. The GPA had now put forward our concerns. What do you make of the situation with, obviously we've seen a certain amount of extra lockdown happening in the north, and of course, like all the border counties, there's talks of maybe circuit breakers, and there's different talk going on at the moment without getting too specific with it. But what do you make of this situation? Is it very unfair on Fermanagh? Is the integrity of the league at stake, or what are your thoughts?
Well, listen, I'm involved with county minors, and we play Fermanagh minors in the championship, so we sympathise with them. We understand that it's very difficult. Like at the minute, we ran a training there a few weeks back, and we had 12 men missing, from who were isolating from school, so it is a very difficult time. I understand, and I sense the frustrations, and I suppose, Shane, we've got to be careful too, because people on the outside, cynics on the outside, will be looking, thinking, well, Fermanagh are struggling in the relegation zone. If they were safe and they were mid-table, would the same circumstances still arise? Maybe, possibly not, but it is now. But at the same time, you've got to take their word for it. That there is problems, and there's problems everywhere. And every county's having problems. And I think if the leagues were to go ahead and the likes of Clare were to be given 2 points, for the game, I think, Shane, it would bring the integrity of the league seriously into question. Particularly those teams that are scrapping for their lives and trying to fight for points. And I think it would be wrong. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this proceeds. It really will. But I can understand McManaman's frustrations. I can understand what they're thinking. It is very, very difficult for any team. And again, it's the society we're living in at the minute. We've got to deal with these things on a week-by-week basis. We don't know next week who's going to be available, who's not going to be available. It could be a different county next week. It could be Armagh, it could be Westmeath, it could be there. So we don't really know. So it's you have to take their word for it, and I do sympathise with them in that capacity, Shane.
Yeah, and your own native Down are in the league Division 3 against Leitrim this weekend. I would imagine you'd be expecting to win that. Currently sitting in second place in Division 3, vying with Longford, who are also on 7 points for promotion, and there's a couple other teams that mathematically can push as well. Are Down on the right trajectory again? It's been so many months since they've been in action. It's very hard for us to actually tell how they're going.
Yeah, no, listen, I think Down's going in the right direction. And it's been a good season for them. They should have got promoted last year, Shane. There's no question about it. They let promotion slide on the last day against Loud. I think they learned hard lessons from that. So I would expect Down to dispose of Leitrim on Saturday night, particularly the game in Newry as well. It's just a pity that we don't get any supporters into the game these days. Newry's always a great atmosphere on a Saturday night, so it'll be disappointing for the lads to get promoted, obviously with no crowd there. But there's no question on the right trajectory. But just going back to the Fermanagh thing, something just crossed my mind there, actually, just thinking about it, is that we need to be careful too, Shane, that moving forward, that particularly with COVID, and I said this as well, that Declan Brogue at the time when he found it Fermanagh, that we don't get to a stage now where we get to the business end of the season and teams are starting to bury COVID cases, and I'm not saying in any way whatsoever that teams would take that chance, but there is a win at all cost culture ingrained in the games at the highest level, and we just need to be careful that, say, for example, there was a case or a suspected case that maybe you'd say, look, we'll get tested after the weekend, don't worry about it this weekend, and we just need to be careful of that, because teams might look at the Fermanagh case and think, well, if they're not going to get any grace at all from Croke Park, then the best thing to do is to say nothing. And I would hope that wouldn't happen. But yourself, sometimes when it gets to the business end, these things can happen. So we just need to be careful in that respect. But no, come back to Down. They're in a good place. Training's been going well from what I'm led to believe, and there's a couple of good challenge games as well. So I'm fully expecting to win Saturday night with a lot of confidence here and hopefully get over the line.
And absolutely, and we'll chat again on football, I'm sure, very, very soon, and it'll be great to actually preview and review a bit more stuff when we've actually seen football rather than talking in it's a bit of a vacuum at the moment. It's actually very hard to say too much, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's very difficult. As I said to you, like, you're sort of previewing something that you don't really know what's happening. You don't know who's injured, who's not injured, and things like that. So fingers crossed this time next week we'll be able to look back at a good weekend of football.